On a freezing night in 1644, a single boat drifted silently onto the dark waters of the Bosphorus Strait in Istanbul. It was midnight. The city was asleep. The only sound was the rhythmic splashing of oars against the black water. The boat was not carrying cargo. It was not carrying spices or gold or soldiers. It was carrying a heavy load of weighted sacks, and inside these sacks, something was moving. One by one, the sacks were pushed over the edge. By the time the sun rose over the empire, 280 women had vanished from the face of the earth. They were the victims of one man's paranoia, a man who possessed absolute power and absolute madness. This is the story of Sultan Ibrahim, the man who drowned his entire harem. To understand the massacre, you must understand the monster. Ibrahim was not born evil. He was manufactured. For 22 years, he lived in a place known as the Kafes, the cage. In the Ottoman tradition of fratricide, when a new sultan took the throne, he would often execute all his brothers to prevent civil war. But Ibrahim was spared. Instead of death, he was given a life sentence of waiting. He was locked in a small apartment within the palace. He had no contact with the outside world. His only companions were deaf-mute servants who could not speak to him. Every single day for 2 decades, he listened to footsteps outside his door, waiting for the executioner to turn the key. Imagine the psychological torture. 22 years of silence, 22 years of terror. When his brother, Sultan Murad IV, finally died, the courtiers came to the cage to tell Ibrahim he was now the emperor. He didn't believe them. He barricaded the door with furniture. He screamed that it was a trick to kill him. The Grand Vizier eventually had to bring his dead brother's cold body and show it to him through the window just to get him to come out. When Ibrahim finally saw the corpse, he didn't cry. He didn't pray. He started to laugh. He danced around the dead body of his brother, screaming over and over again, "The butcher is dead! The butcher is dead!" The court watched in silence, realizing that their new sultan was completely insane. Once on the throne, Ibrahim's mind began to fracture further. He was weak, impotent, and terrified. To fix him, his mother, the powerful Mad Sultan, hired a man known as Hoka, the jinn keeper. Hoka was a mystic, a dark sorcerer who claimed he could cure the sultan with magic. He fed Ibrahim strange potions, rare herbs, and aphrodisiacs. He whispered into the sultan's ear that he was a god and that his desires were divine law. Under the sorcerer's influence, Ibrahim's obsession shifted to sensory pleasures. His greatest obsession was fur. He loved the feeling of it so much that he ordered the entire palace to be lined with sable. He forced his advisors to act as fur merchants. He taxed the empire into poverty just to buy more pelts. He slept on furs, he walked on furs, and he demanded his women dress in furs. And then there were the women. Ibrahim's appetite was insatiable. He would scour the empire for specific types of beauty. He famously became obsessed with a woman he named Sugar Cube, a Georgian beauty weighing nearly 330 pounds. He didn't just love her, he worshipped her. He gave her the salary of a high general. He eventually appointed this woman as the governor of Damascus, a concubine, ruling a holy city. The people were furious. But the imperial harem was not a paradise. It was a snake pit. With hundreds of women competing for the favor of a madman, jealousy was the currency of the realm, and whispers in the harem can be deadly. One afternoon, a rumor reached Ibrahim's ear. A whisper. "My Sultan, one of your concubines has been compromised. A stranger was seen in the Harem gardens. One of the women has been unfaithful." A rational man would investigate. He would find the culprit, but Ibrahim still had the mind of the prisoner in the cage. To him, this wasn't just adultery. It was a conspiracy. It was a threat. He demanded to know who it was. But the rumor was vague. No one knew which woman it was, and because he could not find the one guilty woman, he decided that none of them could be trusted. He made a decision that shocked even his cruelest executioners. He ordered a purge. Not a trial, not an investigation, a cleansing. Under the cover of darkness, the deaf-mute guards, the only men he trusted, moved through the harem quarters. They woke the women up. They dragged them from their beds. No screaming, just the sound of shuffling feet and muffled cries. They were taken to the boats waiting at the palace seawall. The women were placed into sacks weighted with stones. And then the rowing began. History is often written by the victors, and some modern historians argue about the exact number. But the legend of that night persists. 280 women drowned because one man was too afraid to ask a question. But the drowning was not the end of Ibrahim's madness. It was only the beginning. Emboldened by his power, he committed one final sin that would destroy him. He set his eyes on the daughter of the Grand Mufti, the highest religious leader in the Islamic world. He demanded to marry her. The Mufti refused, knowing the Sultan's depravity. Ibrahim did not take no for an answer. He had the girl kidnapped from her father's house. He held her prisoner in the palace, assaulted her, and then, when he was bored, he sent her back to her father with a scarred face. This was the final straw. The religious leaders, the army, and even his own mother turned against him. They stormed the palace. Ibrahim was dragged back to the very cage he had escaped years ago. He cried out to the men dragging him, "Is there no one who has eaten my bread who will pity me?" There was no pity. In the same room where he had lived in fear for 20 years, the executioners finally came. And the man holding the rope was the very same gardener he had promoted years ago. There is a chilling story told by a diver years later. He was exploring the bottom of the Bosphorus Strait, looking for a lost anchor. He reported seeing something that made him flee the water in terror. He claimed to see hundreds of sacks standing upright on the seabed, swaying gently with the current. A silent underwater graveyard of the Sultan's madness. The waters of the Bosphorus flow quickly, washing away the sins of the past. But if you look closely at the dark water at night, you might just remember the price of absolute power. If you enjoyed this dark tale, hit the like button and subscribe for more history hidden in the shadows.